Chosen one, heaven is proud of you. Reward forever. You have crossed the deserts that no one has ever seen you crawl through, and yet you are still here, stronger, wiser, purer in spirit. Heaven has watched every step you have taken, and today the message is clear. Heaven is proud of you. Not only silently proud, but also roaring with light, celebrating that you have overcome every challenge that no one else has noticed. This is not a moment of false hope or empty praise. It is a spiritual declaration echoing from the highest place in creation. You are seen. Your struggle was not in vain. Your choices are not forgotten. And your reward is eternal. Before we go any further, I invite you to stay with us until the end of this message. Don't skip a second. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Something powerful will awaken within you today. And when you do, I invite you to go into the comments and write your warmest, deepest wish, followed by the number 77. Let this be the signal to the universe that you are ready to receive, ready to change, ready to claim the reward that has been written into your story from the very beginning. You see, the reward is not money, although prosperity will follow you. It is not popularity, although your light will attract many. The reward is deeper. It is encoded in your peace, your harmony, your ability to walk in your purpose without losing sight of it. The reward is in your heightened identity, for you are no longer who you were when the pain began. Heaven is proud of you for being who you are, not because you are perfect, but because you kept going when everything told you to give up. That alone rewrote everything. There's something sacred about those who suffer in silence, those who bear their burdens without spectacle. You are one of them. You turned down shortcuts. You refused to betray your soul even when betrayal would have been easier. You gave up things others said were impossible to let go of. You stayed clean in a world dripping with temptation. You showed loyalty in a time when everyone is loyal only to themselves. These things are not lost on the divine. Every time you chose light, every time you stayed honest, you earned something eternal. Chosen one, you must understand something. Your struggle was your schooling. And heaven is not just watching you anymore. It's sending gifts now. Unseen help is being released. Old chains are snapping off. You didn't go through all that just to end up the same. Your soul has reached a level where nothing unworthy can follow you anymore. That's why so many people fell away. That's why so many places you once loved began to feel foreign. That's why silence became your companion. It was protecting you, teaching you to listen to the divine frequency of your soul. And that frequency now, it's vibrating higher than ever. You're aligned with something enormous, a mission, a promise, a destiny. You've been chosen not just to survive, but to carry light. And that light is about to shine in a way that no shadow can ever cover again. Heaven is proud of you because you didn't let the darkness win. You didn't let it change your heart. You didn't become cold just because the world was cruel. You remained soft. You remained true. That is divine strength. There are souls who came into this world to change timelines, to break ancestral patterns, heal family wounds, shift generations. You are one of them. Your pain wasn't random. It was a signal that you were strong enough to carry something bigger than yourself. Every time you were rejected, misunderstood, left behind, it was because your soul was simply too high frequency for certain environments. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand out, not in ego, but in energy. You've learned that reward isn't always immediate, It doesn't come in applause. Sometimes it comes in solitude. But now, the season has shifted. Now, heaven is lifting the veil. Now, the doors that were locked for so long are starting to open. Not because you forced them, but because you became ready. That's the secret. The delay wasn't punishment. It was protection. You had to evolve into the version of yourself that could carry the blessing without being broken by it. And now you are. Now you are that version. Aligned, rooted, refined. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to explain your heart anymore. The ones who are meant for you will see you. The paths that are meant for you will open for you. What is meant for you can no longer be blocked, not by fear, not by people, not even by your own doubts, because heaven has spoken, and heaven is proud. Don't ever underestimate how far you've come. The nights you cried yourself to sleep and still woke up with hope, that was your spirit being reborn. The times you showed kindness when your heart was breaking, that was divinity shining through you. The moments you forgave what you could have cursed, that was royalty in your blood remembering its worth. You are not just someone struggling on earth. You are someone who carries a spiritual inheritance that stretches beyond this lifetime. So now, chosen one, as the energies around you shift and your reward draws near, stay grounded, stay grateful, keep your heart open, because the greatest blessings often come in the most unexpected forms. Watch for synchronicities, pay attention to your dreams, trust your inner nudges. You are in a season where the veil is thin. What you think, feel, and speak has immense creative power. Use it with intention. Create with love. Speak with clarity. You are not alone in this. The heavens have been watching over you like a parent watches their child learn to walk, stumbling, falling, getting back up. But now, you are walking with purpose. No more crawling, no more begging for validation. You've earned your crown, not by demanding it, but by growing into it. And the crown fits now. It fits because it was always made for you. Your journey is not over. In fact, it's just beginning. But now, you're stepping into it with divine backup. You will be guided, you will be supported, you will be protected, not because of what you've done, but because of who you've become. That's the reward, the return of your true self, the one before the pain, the one before the doubt, the one heaven always knew you'd become. Chosen one, there is nothing left to fear. You are held, you are honored, you are celebrated, and the universe is now aligning every piece of the puzzle for you. All the pain you endured is being transformed into portals of power. You are no longer asking, "Why me?" Now you're declaring, "It had to be me," because only someone like you could rise after what tried to bury them. And rise you have. Heaven is proud, and that pride will now translate into blessings so big, so tailored to your soul, that you will laugh and cry at the same time. You will see why it took so long. You will understand why you had to walk alone, and you will never again question your worth. The time has come. You made it. And now, your reward begins. Chosen one, listen carefully now, because the air around you is changing. The space you're in is shifting its vibration. You may not be able to see it yet, but you can feel it. It's subtle, like the moment just before sunrise, when the world is still dark, but the birds begin to sing because they know. That's where you are now. The light is just about to break through, and the heavens are already celebrating the dawn, rising in your soul. There were seasons in your life where nothing made sense. You tried to do everything right, helped others, prayed, showed patience, stayed loyal, and still, the outcomes didn't match your efforts. You wondered if you were cursed. You wondered if maybe your dreams were too big, your faith too naive. But now, heaven reveals what was really happening. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Prepared for a kind of peace that doesn't get shaken by storms. Prepared for a love that doesn't leave. Prepared for a joy that doesn't need explanation. Your reward isn't arriving because you've suffered enough. It's arriving because the suffering transformed you. Because you didn't let it turn you into something bitter. Because somehow, even in your lowest moments, you chose to believe, just enough to keep going. And that belief lit a signal fire in the heavens. There are moments in the spirit where the entire universe pauses, watching a soul move from despair into destiny. You're standing in that moment now. You are that soul. No one else may know what it took for you to get here, but heaven knows, and heaven is responding. You were chosen to be different. And that difference felt like isolation for a long time. But it wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to separate you. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were meant to walk a path few would dare to tread. That kind of path is narrow. That kind of path feels lonely. But that kind of path leads to miracles. You've reached the part of your story where the miracle no longer seems impossible. It feels inevitable. Not because you forced it, but because you've become it. The miracle is now in your presence, your words, your decisions. You've stepped into alignment with the version of you that heaven has always seen. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You are the evidence. When people look at you in the days ahead, they won't just see someone who made it. They'll feel something shift in their own spirit. Your very presence will begin to stir awakenings in others. That's part of your reward too, to become a vessel, a transmitter of divine energy, a carrier of peace that goes beyond understanding. You are no longer trying to shine. You simply are the light now. This is why the attacks were so strong. This is why the resistance wouldn't let up. Because if you ever made it through, if you ever broke free, you'd become dangerous to everything that tried to hold you down. And now you have. Now you are. That's why old fears are surfacing again. Not to scare you, but to show you just how powerless they've become. You've outgrown them. They're echoes, nothing more. Look at how you move now. Look at how your intuition whispers louder than doubt. Look at how your silence holds more power than your words once did. This is the fruit of the inner work. This is what spiritual victory looks like. Quiet, grounded, powerful. You don't chase anymore. You attract. You don't beg anymore. You command. Not from arrogance, but from alignment. And let's talk about alignment. The reward is not a destination. It's a state of being. You've entered it now. That means everything you do, every choice you make, every door you walk through, will begin to reflect that divine flow. You won't have to struggle like before. Things will come, not because they're easy, but because you're ready. Ready to hold them. Ready to carry them without dropping your truth. Heaven is proud of you because you didn't just survive, you evolved, and now even your pain has purpose. You'll use what once broke you to build others. You'll speak into wounds you've already healed. You'll carry keys for people who don't even know they're locked up. This is divine responsibility. This is what heaven entrusts to the chosen. But remember, you're not here to convince anyone of your worth. Let them doubt. Let them walk away. Let them say what they want. The real ones, those meant for you, will feel your essence before they understand it, and they will stay. Your tribe is not built on appearance. It's built on resonance, and heaven is drawing them to you now. You'll notice it soon, how the wrong people start falling away without effort, how the right ones find you at the perfect time, how opportunities that once evaded you now begin to knock, gently but consistently. This is not luck, it's spiritual law. You've sown in tears, now you reap in joy. You've walked in shadows, now you rise in light. Every lesson you learned in the dark now becomes your power in the light. That's why heaven waited, not to withhold from you, but to fortify you. You are not fragile anymore. You're focused. You're no longer waiting to be rescued. You've rescued yourself, and now you are a walking revelation. Chosen one, your name has been spoken in divine spaces. Your story is being echoed through realms beyond this world. And it's not a story of failure, it's one of redemption. Heaven delights in you, not because you were flawless, but because you returned to love, because you forgave, because you grew, because you didn't quit. That matters more than you know. There are blessings that have your name written on them, not metaphorically, but spiritually. They've been circling above you for years, waiting for your readiness. And now they begin to descend, slowly at first, then all at once. Prepare your heart to receive, not out of desperation, but out of dignity. This is not a gift from the world, it's a reward from heaven. And nothing can block what's divine. You'll feel it in your body, an ease returning to places that once held tension. You'll see it in your emotions, a calm where chaos used to live. You'll recognize it in your thoughts, clarity replacing confusion. This is your upgrade. This is your inheritance. You didn't steal it. You didn't cheat for it. You became it. And now, it can't be taken from you. Heaven is proud, not just of what you've done, but of what you've become. And in the days to come, you'll realize something beautiful. This was never about reward as a prize. It was always about reward as permission. Permission to be who you truly are, fully, freely, fearlessly. You've earned that freedom now. You've embodied that light. You've become that vessel. And from this point forward, nothing will ever be the same. You may not realize this yet, but you've already stepped into a timeline that no longer tolerates your self-doubt. You can't return to the version of yourself that apologized for taking up space. That version served its purpose. It kept you safe in a world that didn't recognize your power. But now, the power is undeniable. You feel it humming beneath your skin, rising with every breath, every decision. You are no longer hiding. You are home, in yourself. The reward is unfolding in the smallest of ways. The way you trust your gut without needing validation. The way you say no without guilt. The way you rest without feeling lazy. These may seem like tiny revolutions, but in the language of heaven, they are monumental. They are proof that your inner world has changed its frequency. And when that happens, the outer world has no choice but to respond. Watch how the things you once chased now begin to arrive. Watch how people who once overlooked you suddenly see you through new eyes, but not because you became louder or flashier or different. It's because you aligned. That alignment is magnetic. It doesn't scream. It simply radiates. That's the power of spiritual authority. You no longer have to beg for what you were born to embody. You see, the reason heaven is proud of you isn't because you never made mistakes. It's because you learned from every single one. You let pain shape you without hardening your heart. You let grief teach you without stealing your joy. You held space for your humanity while still reaching for your divinity. That kind of grace, that kind of quiet endurance, it touches eternity. You were never meant to fit into the molds others tried to press you into. You weren't made to shrink, to silence, to settle. That tension you felt between who you were and who you were becoming, it wasn't confusion. It was growth. The reward was never meant to be delivered to your comfort zone. It was waiting on the other side of your courage. And now that you've crossed that threshold, the spiritual contracts that were written for your life are activating. There are people, places, and moments you are destined to encounter, and they are already being arranged. It's not your job to chase them down. It's your job to stay open, to stay faithful to your becoming. That's what unlocks the timing. That's what allows divine coordination to fall into place. You are not late. You are not behind. You are arriving exactly when heaven planned for you to rise. And make no mistake, you are rising. It may feel slow at times, but trust this: even slow growth is sacred. Even hidden growth is seen. The roots of your spirit have gone deep. So when your reward appears, it will be sustainable. It won't break you. It will bless you. Because the foundation has been fortified by tears, prayers, and unshakable resolve. That's why you had to lose some things along the way. Not because you were being punished, but because certain things couldn't go where you're going. You outgrew versions of yourself that were only built for survival. But now, you're built for sovereignty. Your movements are no longer reactive. They're intentional. You don't just respond to life now. You shape it. And that shaping? It's divine in origin. It flows from the part of you that was never broken, never shaken, never touched by the world's chaos. That part of you, the eternal essence, has been speaking louder lately. You've felt it in the stillness, in the moments between thoughts, that subtle whisper of truth that reminds you you were always meant for more. That voice, that's heaven, and it's proud of how you've listened. Because let's be honest, there were times when giving up seemed easier. You flirted with surrender. You questioned your worth. You silenced your own voice to make others comfortable. But still, you stayed. You stayed in the process. You stayed in the fire. You stayed when nothing made sense, because something in you knew. That knowing is what pulled you through, and now the knowing is being rewarded. You've been entrusted with insight, compassion, empathy, and power. Not the kind of power that dominates, the kind of power that heals, that holds, that uplifts. When you walk into a room now, your energy goes ahead of you. Before you speak, your presence speaks. And that presence, it carries heaven's fingerprint. You may feel unqualified. You may feel like you still have so far to go. But here's what heaven knows. Perfection was never the requirement. Presence was. And you showed up, again and again, in the mess, in the doubt, in the silence. You showed up to your own healing, and now you show up differently for the world. So, let this truth settle into your bones. You are not being blessed as a reward for performance. You are being recognized for alignment. That's what makes the reward eternal. It's not based on achievement. It's based on essence. And your essence has been purified through every season you've survived. You are holy ground now. The type of soul that others feel safe with. The type of energy that recalibrates the space. And that is rare. That is precious. That is why heaven is celebrating you. Not with applause, but with manifestation. You'll know it when the opportunities align without force. When the right people enter without games. When the next steps appear without pressure. This is what divine flow feels like. This is what trust births. You are no longer trying to control everything. You are finally allowing. And in that surrender, You are remembering who you've always been beneath the noise. Not a victim, not an imposter, not a mistake, but a vessel, a warrior, a chosen one. And yes, there will still be moments of challenge, but you won't respond the same. You've built new reflexes. You meet opposition with peace now. You meet uncertainty with grace. You don't need to prove your worth. You simply are your worth. This is the elevation. This is the shift. This is the reward. Not as a destination, but as a dimension you now walk in. You've done the work. You've paid the price. You've passed the tests. Now, receive. Receive what heaven has declared over your life. Receive the love you thought was only for others. Receive the ease you never believed you could have. Receive the legacy you're about to step into. It's yours, not because you took it, but because you became it. There are days when the sky seems too quiet, when prayers feel like they vanish into empty air and signs no longer arrive with the clarity they once had. But even in that silence, even in that holy stillness, heaven is watching, not with judgment, but with wonder, not waiting for you to be perfect, but marveling at how far you've come. You walk now, not with a map, but with an internal compass lit by divine fire. That fire inside you, it didn't start in this lifetime. You came here carrying ancient knowledge, sacred patterns, and spiritual instructions etched into your very being. That's why the world felt foreign at times. That's why you never fully fit in, because you weren't sent here to blend in. You were sent here to awaken others, by first awakening yourself. And now look at what you've become. You are no longer waiting for someone to come save you. You've become the healer, the guide, the mirror, the lighthouse. And even if your light flickers on hard days, it never fully goes out. That flicker, that faint flame, is still seen from above. And to heaven, it is radiant. It is glorious. It is proof of your resilience. You've walked through shadows that tried to convince you of your worthlessness. But even in those moments, something sacred remained unshaken within you. That's what heaven saw. That's what heaven honors now. Not the mask you wore to survive, but the soul that dared to heal. The soul that whispered, "I will keep going," even when everything felt lost. You don't need to be louder, shinier, or more impressive to receive your reward. Your reward was never dependent on performance. It was already written into your path. The only requirement was your courage to keep walking. And you did. Even through heartbreak, through loneliness, through long nights where it felt like no one understood the weight you were carrying, you kept showing up. And that is power. Now, the energy around you is shifting, not because you demanded it, but because you became the shift. You've transformed your perception. You've transmuted the old narratives. You've stepped out of victimhood and into victory. Not a loud, ego-driven victory, but a quiet, soul-deep one. One that cannot be taken away because it came from within. That kind of victory brings with it a reward that isn't always material, but it's always miraculous. You may find yourself surrounded by peace where chaos used to live. You may find your mind clear where confusion used to reign. And you'll realize this peace was always possible. You simply had to claim it. You had to become someone who no longer negotiates with their own worth. You now walk with heaven's permission. You carry it in your spine, in your gaze, in the way you breathe. It shows up in how you speak to yourself, in how you forgive your past, in how you say yes only to what truly aligns. You are not seeking favor. You are favor. You are not asking for a seat at the table. You are the table. And those who once couldn't see your light, they weren't meant to recognize you back then. Some people are only allowed access to your healed version. The version that knows boundaries. The version that trusts its own intuition. The version that walks away without looking back, not out of spite, but out of clarity. Clarity is the new compass now. You no longer second-guess your growth. You no longer need to justify your choices to people who were never meant to understand your calling. Your reward is showing up as freedom. Freedom from guilt, from shame, from scarcity. That is divine compensation. That is spiritual justice. That is what happens when heaven sees that you kept faith alive, even when it was just a flicker. You have no idea how many times heaven has leaned closer just to marvel at your process. When you forgave that person who never apologized. When you loved despite being unloved. When you chose grace over revenge. When you surrendered instead of forcing. All those unseen moments were recorded, not for judgment, but for celebration. And now, your celebration is here. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in the way you expected, but it's arriving in layers. It's arriving in moments where you catch yourself smiling for no reason, where peace sneaks up on you, where old triggers no longer hold power, where you wake up feeling different, lighter, brighter, more you. Because this is the season where your soul starts to remember who it was before the world told you otherwise. This is the chapter of holy remembrance, of divine restoration, not just the return of what was lost, but the arrival of what you never thought possible, the kind of blessings that make you weep, not because you begged for them, but because you finally believe you're worthy of them. And you are, without question, without condition. Your worthiness is not based on how much you give, or how much you sacrifice, or how much you carry. It's based on who you are. And who you are is rare. Heaven doesn't mass-produce souls like yours. You were crafted intentionally, woven with purpose, and sent with love. You're not here to blend into the noise. You're here to change the frequency. And you've already started doing that. The lives you've touched, sometimes without even knowing it, are part of your legacy. Your light echoes in places your body hasn't even reached yet. That's the power of a chosen one who remembers their mission. So walk forward now, not with hesitation, but with holy conviction. You're not hoping for alignment. You are alignment. You're not praying for validation. You are validation. The mirror you hold now reflects truth, not illusion. And you'll find that truth has a way of gathering everything that matches its frequency. You don't chase. You attract. You don't beg. You embody. You don't fear. You remember. And in that remembrance, you unlock everything heaven stored in your name. You are stepping into a season where everything begins to echo back to you with divine clarity. Not because you shouted louder, but because you whispered deeper, because you trusted longer, because you healed honestly. That is rare. That is magnetic. That is heaven's pride made manifest. There comes a point in the journey where you're no longer fighting for your life. You're living it, truly, deeply, wholly. Not performing it, not surviving it, but inhabiting it like it was always yours to hold. That moment, when the storm outside no longer controls the climate within, is when the reward begins to touch every corner of your reality. Heaven knew the weight you carried, not just the visible burdens, but the silent ones, the ones no one asked about, the ones you carried alone, the spiritual fatigue, the mental battles, the emotional wounds you dressed with a smile. And yet, you kept walking, not because you always felt strong, but because something in your soul refused to give up. That refusal That sacred defiance is divine. It's not rooted in ego, it's rooted in destiny. You were chosen not because you were flawless, but because you were willing to rise every time something tried to bury you. You weren't just enduring, you were training. Every tear, every heartbreak, every moment of isolation, all of it was a divine classroom. And you passed tests that nobody even knew you were taking. You've developed strength the hard way. Not the kind of strength that needs applause, but the kind that holds stillness in the middle of chaos. The kind that listens when everyone else reacts. The kind that trusts when nothing makes sense. That's spiritual authority. And you've earned it through experience, not theory. So now, heaven is moving, not just around you, but through you. You're becoming the vessel, the passage, the answer. You are no longer waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel. You are the light inside it. And because of that, you've become a signal to the universe, a sacred vibration that cannot be ignored. Doors that were once locked are now recognizing your frequency. This isn't magic. This is alignment. You're not forcing anything. You're simply walking in truth. And truth has a way of rearranging the atmosphere. People sense it. Opportunities sense it. The energy around you becomes undeniable when you no longer apologize for who you are. That is the reward. Not just what comes to you, but what leaves you because it no longer matches you. There's a different kind of peace that lives in someone who has nothing to prove. You've reached that place. It doesn't mean the road is perfect, but your posture has changed. You've let go of control without letting go of power. You've stopped chasing timelines that weren't meant for you. There's a different kind of peace that lives in someone who has nothing to prove. You've reached that place. It doesn't mean the road is perfect, but your posture has changed. You've let go of control without letting go of power. You've stopped chasing timelines that weren't meant for you. You've stopped mourning closed doors because you finally trust what's on the other side. And when you trust like that, the universe breathes easier, because now you're moving with it, not against it. Now you're partnering with divine flow instead of resisting it. And in that union, miracles are born. The kind of miracles that don't just change your life, but ripple outward into generations. That's the magnitude of the work you've been doing. That's why heaven is proud. This path you've chosen, it was never supposed to be easy. Chosen ones don't walk paths paved by others. You carve them, you blaze them. You go first, often without a map. And that takes bravery most will never understand. But heaven understands. And because of your willingness to keep walking without seeing the full staircase, new paths are opening. Not just for you, but for everyone connected to your legacy. Yes, your legacy, even if you don't see it yet, even if the evidence hasn't shown up physically. Trust, your energy has already begun to plant seeds that will bear fruit in places and people you may never even meet. Your courage is not small. It is cosmic. It shifts timelines. It alters what's possible. That's the level of impact we're talking about. Not just temporary comfort, but eternal consequence. What you are stepping into now is not just a personal reward. It's a confirmation that you were right to believe, that your faith was not wasted, that your pain was not pointless, that your silence was heard, that your waiting was not in vain. And in this confirmation, you're not only being blessed, you're being trusted, with vision, with wisdom, with responsibility, because you've proven that you don't just want the light, you want to be the light. That is rare. That is holy. That is what makes you different. You're not just trying to feel better. You're becoming better. Not because someone told you to, but because your spirit remembered who it is. And in that remembrance, you've shed illusions. You've let go of attachments. You've stepped away from roles that never fit your soul. That's why things had to fall away, not to punish you, but to prepare you, to purify the path, because the reward isn't just a thing, it's a realm, a dimension you now walk in where things feel lighter, clearer, more aligned, where you no longer shrink, where your energy introduces you long before your words ever do, where you love yourself without conditions and expect that same love in return, where you're no longer afraid of being seen, because finally you see yourself. And what a sight it is, not perfect, not always polished, but real, open, awake. You are living proof that healing is possible, that transformation is real, that the soul can rise from anything. You are evidence of divine resilience. You wear the fingerprints of heaven across your aura. And those who are meant to walk with you, they'll see it, they'll feel it, they'll remember you even if they've never met you before. Because chosen ones carry a recognition, a sacred familiarity, and you've stepped fully into that role now, not to rule over others, but to remind them of what's possible. You lead with love, you move with grace, and you rest in the knowing that heaven has already marked your steps. So rest now, not because you're done, but because you've entered a new phase, a phase where you no longer earn your worth, you express it, where your actions are not desperate, but deliberate, where your presence is the prayer, where your life becomes the altar. And that is the reward. This is the moment when everything begins to make sense, not because the circumstances have changed, but because you have. The shift has happened within. And from this sacred space, nothing will ever be the same again. You're not just living a life, you are embodying a calling, one that is older than your name, greater than your story, and bigger than your fears. Heaven didn't choose you by mistake. There are no accidents here. You were called into existence for a time such as this. You were shaped through the pressure, molded by the fire, softened by the heartbreak, strengthened by the surrender. And what has emerged from all of that is not someone broken, but someone born again, into clarity, into alignment, into divine power. No more hiding, no more playing small to make others comfortable. You are no longer bending to fit into places you've outgrown. You are walking in rooms that once intimidated you and owning them with quiet grace. Your past has nothing on the person you've become. You've alchemized pain into power, wounds into wisdom, trials into triumph, and heaven has watched all of it. This isn't just reward, this is recognition, a holy announcement that your efforts were not invisible. The angels knew, the universe saw, the divine took notes when no one else clapped, and now the applause you never received from the world is echoing in the heavens, louder than thunder, more sacred than song. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time, divine time. Everything that was withheld is now making its way to you, not because you begged, but because you've become ready. You've created room. You've become a match for what is destined to meet you. And what's coming isn't just good, it's holy, it's not random, it's yours. Peace that stays, love that uplifts, opportunities that align, protection that surrounds, clarity that cuts through confusion. These are not fantasies, these are your rewards, and not rewards like a prize, but as proof of your evolution. You've made the leap from surviving to thriving, from doubting to trusting, from wandering to knowing. Knowing who you are, knowing what you carry, knowing that no storm can erase your calling. And that is the space where the soul finally exhales. That's the space where the reward no longer feels like something you must reach for, but something that flows to you because you are walking in truth. Your truth is magnetic. It calls in everything meant for you. People, experiences, visions, it's all moving toward you now because you are no longer broadcasting fear. You're resonating faith. You're no longer seeking approval. You're resting in purpose. You're no longer reacting to life. You're co-creating with heaven. And it shows in your smile, in your walk, in your decisions, in your energy. That's why some people can't explain your glow. That's why even in silence, your presence speaks. Because you are not here just to exist. You are here to elevate. Every room you walk into becomes better because you're in it. Not because of arrogance, but because of alignment. The reward is also this. You are no longer available for anything that dishonors your soul. You've learned to say no without guilt. You've learned to leave without drama. You've learned that peace is more precious than approval, and solitude is more powerful than shallow company. You are rich, not in gold, but in discernment, and that richness cannot be stolen. So now, go forward, with boldness, with humility, with fire. Let the world witness what a soul looks like when it remembers who it is. Let them see what happens when someone chooses love over fear, truth over comfort, calling over convenience. Let them feel what heaven already knows. You are rare, you are radiant, you are real. The journey didn't break you, it revealed you. And what it revealed is breathtaking. Heaven is not just proud of you. Heaven is celebrating you. You have walked through the wilderness and emerged with wonder. You have faced shadows and returned with light. You have prayed when there were no words and kept moving when there was no map. You are the miracle you've been waiting for. You are the sign someone else is praying for. You are the proof that the divine still moves on this earth. Let that truth settle in your bones. Let it become your default. Let it guide every step from here on. You are not the same. You never will be. The heavens have written your name in sacred light, and now it shines through everything you touch. This is not the end. It's the unveiling. This is not the reward. It's the beginning of how it will all unfold. Chosen one. Heaven is proud of you.